Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic, and welcome to this deep woo-woo episode entitled The Milky Woo with Rhyanna Watson. Of course, you can find her work at Open Hearts Can Unite here on YouTube and also on her Instagram account at Open Hearts Can Unite. And you can find her personally at RhyannaWatson.com. Of course, she is the author of Brave, Beautiful, and Bearing It All. Let's give her a big warm welcome back to the show. Rhyanna, welcome back.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have you. I haven't had you on for a long time. How's it going, Rhyanna?
I'm good. It's been so long, hasn't it? It's really nice to be here. It's always such a beautiful flow when we chat.
Yeah, I'm excited for a conversation. It was funny a couple of days ago as I put the poster up, somebody said, "Oh, who's this random person on your show?" I'm like, wait a second, they're not random. You're probably new to my channel if you're saying that, because Rhyanna was one of my very, very first guests. Look at the date on that, March 2020. So it's been a while. And you and I have been collaborating quite a bit. But what's been happening is that we've had some issues with YouTube. We've had some issues with Patreon for a lot of our content, and not because of the nudity. Of course, there's nudity. We're going to get into the book here in a second, but because of the healing frequency that was attached to that. Apparently, we're not allowed to talk about these things here on YouTube. So it's been quite a road you and I have traveled over the last 2 years, hasn't it, Rhyanna?
Had an old as the new new, right?
Exactly. Hey, let me before we go too fast here, I was excited today because all of my backgrounds have like nebulas and space, kind of themes and all that. And I was like, oh, what can I do with Rhyanna? I was thinking of having this orange kind of glowing galaxy. I'm like, no, that's really cool. It's really cool, but no, I think we're gonna do the Milky Woo. So what was this photo shoot about, Rhyanna?
So I have a friend, he's a hobby photographer, and he decided that we should try a milk bath. So he suggested I get some milk and some roses, and he came to my house. So I jumped in the bath, and here is the outcome.
I thought it was one of your professional model shoots. You were promoting some milk or something. I thought it was really cool. So what's this thing you're doing? What were you thinking about there?
I think that I was thinking about nothing.
Okay, that's good enough. Folks, thank you so much for joining us here today on this live interactive show. We're going to spend about 30 minutes or 40 minutes. We really wanted to update you on our series that Rhyanna and I were trying to reproduce here. As I just mentioned, we got in trouble on YouTube. The first series was banned, and then we got trouble on Patreon. And then so I decided to move all of that stuff over to our pay-per-view network. But the issue there too is, as we were doing that, Rhyanna was going through a big move in her life, a new job, new city, everything was changing. So it's been delayed quite a bit. So we thought we'd do this quick show for you guys here on YouTube to kind of catch up and also let you know what's coming up with this episode here on our pay-per-view. So maybe share with the audience, Rhyanna, what's new with you?
What's new? Remind me of a song. I can't think of what it's called now. Anyway, my random thought patterns. So I moved in last year into Lucerne in Switzerland, and so it was quite a big move. But as we know, the world is even more entertaining than usual, and so with that move and transitioning, the entertainment and the grounding and the sense of self is taking a lot longer because it's unstable if you stay in your environment due to the fractions of information and situations going on, and it's quite difficult to settle into a new environment when you not only have to learn it, but you can't actually integrate into it as well. So it's just taking a little more time than anticipated from that move.
Okay, sounds good. And how's your life changed since you wrote this book here? You and I did, of course, this book review series also that somehow has disappeared with one of my deleted channels. But how has your life changed since that too? And talk about some of the feedback and the incredible positive feedback you had from people who read the book, but who also followed you maybe on your Instagram and some of your episodes, and how it really changed their lives. Talk about that a little bit here.
I think it's interesting writing a book because whenever you talk about an experience that you had, positive or negative, you're almost in an experience of therapy or new discoveries, or there's certain neuro pathways that open or close depending on what the experience is. And due to there being a lot of trauma also experienced, it allowed me to sink deeper into being able to speak and not feel ashamed, and not be limited as much as I was. There's still a lot of things that, of course, I'm always going to be a work in progress on. But it also allowed, when we have social media, we have like this facade. And so, you know, it's like a lolly and it looks great, or a sweet or a candy, but you don't know how good it is until you eat it, and you don't know the textures and tastes and smells that come in. And social media is kind of like that. And so giving my option to share my story in my book, a lot of people kind of were taken back to see that there was a lot more to my experience and a lot more reasons as opposed to society reasons as to why I shared the way I did. And that was really difficult, because it's very hard to bear stories, because you still often get shame back at them, because why would you handle it this way, or I know you this way, or I don't believe it happened. There's always those projections, or I've had it worse.
Right.
But at the same time, it allows you to realize there's a whole lot of people that see you, and they want to see you, and they want to hear your story, and they need to hear your story. And so it allowed me a sense of purpose even more than previously. My main purpose was to share because I really want my daughter to see I'm imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want her to see that I'm imperfect and growing, because life is chaotic and difficult, and there is no perfection, but it is beautiful when you grow, and a lot more sweetness comes from that. And then from there, it gave me purpose to realize not only could I also grow for my daughter, but I could grow in hope that maybe someone else needs some information or shares that I've given that might help them. And in turn, there's a ripple effect, which is even more powerful than just helping my daughter. It's a larger ripple effect that we have the blessing of with social media today.
Right. Well, you know, Sarah and I found you, I think when you started your YouTube channel, or at least when Sarah and I found you, you had like 5,000 followers, and here you are now at 500,000. So it's been it's been quite a road. And what struck us, even when you had very little followers, is the words and the frequency you were using in your expression. It was so very unique, and you were so, I guess the word would be raw. And it was very refreshing to see somebody, wow, look how honest she is about everything. And it wasn't the quintessential Instagram pinup model thing. No, it's like, here I am, you know, brave, beautiful, and bearing it all. Yes, but you shared so much about your personal life, some of your own struggles, and how you used the meditation, the yoga, the deep reflection, the revisiting how you saw your own body in time space, and to heal yourself. And these were the conversations that you and I had on these shows, and I thought they were absolutely amazing. And so, of course, now with 500,000 followers, with the book behind your belt, I'm just excited to maybe try again. Hopefully at some point here on our pay-per-view, we'll be able to go back and revisit some of those conversations, because they're still very much needed today, and perhaps more so. I think one of the things you and I were talking about as we were prepping to do this interview is the fact that this whole situation around the planet, and let's just say the lockdowns for now, they've created this weird, not a reprieve, but a weird kind of a prevention of outlets for a lot of people. And so those outlets are now being met through maybe not healthy online practices. And so let's get into that here and see how we can broach the subject with the audience here, to perhaps encourage them to go back, even though, yes, the civilization has put us into these weird, unhealthy, what would you call it, overlays of matrices over us right now. And we're trying to get from underneath that. And that was the whole point of the Healer Within series. We were trying to empower people with their own energy. We talked about Kundalini. Of course, this is a bad word here apparently on YouTube, but we were talking about empowering ourselves with our own chi, our prana, and our energy. So let's talk about now what's happening in the last 2 years, and how for some people now that's been very difficult, because they've been segregated into these lockdowns and using the internet maybe in a not so healthy way to express some of that energy for them. How do you want to develop that subject for today?
That's a good point. There's so many. I'm just trying to be mindful because I know that we have to be mindful in the sense of the words that we use, which is difficult for me because I like to just blah. But so let's see how we can do this. So if you think about social media, for example, I'll use fitness for example. So we have a lot of beautiful humans on fitness media sites and sharing workouts. There's a lot of backstory to those fitness entrepreneurs, and what is happening is a lot of them may not be eating the foods that they're sharing. They are not feeling well in themselves, and they feel stressed to do more working out, which becomes unhealthy because they are feeling like they need to keep up, or they need to be a certain way because that's what social media is viewing them by. That's how social media gets your algorithm, your numbers. If you don't put the right clothes or angles, social media will curate it to tell you this and that and the other. So if we look at fitness alone, there's not necessarily everyone who is sharing a fitness profile is actually living a healthy life. So if you're a Tour de France athlete, and I'll use this with utmost respect for the sport, but you can ask doctors at the end of it, they are actually very unhealthy because they have placed their body onto extreme proportions, and most athletes are very unhealthy. And then mentally, that also stresses the mind. You end up with a lot of depression, and any athlete will tell you that after they have the come down for the recovery. So that's just one example, you know. And also another example would be like, we see people doing everything. They're the jack of all trades, but we humans are not built to be an acrobat and a mathematician and the best gardener and the most beautiful house decorated and to have the knowledge of everything. We can be interested in it, but we are feeling ashamed that we as humans don't have all this information that everyone's projecting and giving. And so therefore we've got 1,000 things to do in our to-do list, but we haven't got a well-prioritized daily routine, which allows us to have a break from social media and allows us to spend time with our families and things like that. And so we've gone from, before COVID started, they said we had an average of 2 hours a day on social media. Now we have an average of 12 hours online from phone, work, computer, Netflix type of screen time.
Right.
That's also very damaging for the eyes and so on. And then you've got young children and they can't have healthy interactions. They're going through their growth spurt. They're going through the study of their bodies and understanding of their bodies, understanding connections in multiple realms with other children. And the only thing they can see is an online, and this is what they do to get that kind of input, but it doesn't allow them to have the right feedback. It doesn't allow them to have the right experience or real-time expressions. So they start developing unhealthy habits, which might be that they're not so mindful how they communicate and so on and so forth. And so now we've got a younger generation having to deal with anxiety or mental health issues or even depreciated social situations or mindful relationship situations, because all they have is a reference to online, and online you are generally not so mindful of how you interact. So you can build quite a few habits that might not serve you later in life.
Right. And you just talked about the kids there too. For me, it's kind of an issue because I'm looking at my kids in the last 2 years and personally, and I feel that now they used to be very outgoing, lots of confidence. And now, seeing as things are the way they are in the last 2 years, they seem to be having trouble making new friends, speaking in groups of people. And when I talk to them about that, they're like, well, it's kind of like we've been, homeschooled for a while. We've been locked up. And now it's like, I'm nervous to see people now. So we're trying to have this conversation because we have not really realized yet the damage perhaps that was also placed on these kids whose brains are still forming. And we gave them these 2 weird years of segregation, of division, of fear, that whole thing about, hey, you can't go see grandma at Christmas because you're going to kill her. Like, all of this stuff is really putting an impact on them. And I'm curious what your thoughts here, and how Lane is doing through all of this, your child, your amazing, beautiful child, how she's doing with all of this, because as parents, we need to figure this out, because right now society is not even looking at that. They're talking about other damages, the damages to the economy, all of these things, but they're not really looking at the damages it's created to us, the adults, but specifically our children. So how are you managing through all of that with Lane?
Well, it's a tough process because, you know, for us, we are, well, I'm Australian and my daughter is part Australian, Austrian, and the ability to see grandparents is really tough and build that connection. And one of the things that I'm finding also difficult thinking about is my mother is 70, my daughter is 8, and my mother's missing a foundational time when my daughter's really ready to play, and the next time she might see her, she might be at that age where, you know, you start to like take your own time and you don't have that playful mindfulness, and that's not only affecting my daughter, that's affecting my mother as well, you know, because that's heart space, that's good healing energy for a mother that has multiple sclerosis. It gives her energy to keep fighting for her days, and she hasn't even seen her grandchildren in Melbourne, Australia for 2 years, my brother's children. So I'm grateful that we have an online world where we can ring and call, but what I'm finding is that, and I think we all would probably find this if we think about ourselves, is it's exhausting. It's exhausting trying to curate the energy when we are in person, that we almost want to step back because we have stepped back for so long. And that process of exhaustion with understanding the world and exhaustion of trying to harmonize energy with others is making us all step back, which is damaging, because one of the reasons why people live a long, healthy life is a good community. And it's not a good community online alone. It's a good community in person. You know, if you're an older person, you've got activities you go and do, or you go hiking with friends, or you have game nights or dinners. It's a very important part of it. And if we lose those skills, we lose a big health part of our life. A lot of kids are losing that skill also, in that I feel personally there's a lot of political discussions coming into schools now from parents feeding down the line to children's, like, should we like this person if they have been X or X? And children shouldn't have these discussions yet. They should be playing and enjoying life and having jokes and talking about their favorite doll or drawing, you know, or activity they did on the weekend. But these kids have now got these heavy discussions on their shoulders, you know, that is unnecessary at such a young age, that is bringing down their inner child play and their balance as well.
Right. Oh, it's a lot of work in front of us, and as parents, my hearts go out to the kids, because they're suffering this in a very different way than we are. And I think the fact that they don't understand a lot of it, they're not able to communicate and put their finger on the, okay, this is what's stressing me out, daddy, or that's what's stressing me out, mommy. They don't really know. So they're in this weird place, and as parents, we just struggle and we're trying to support them. But I hope that these conversations and just exploring that together as parents, we can kind of help each other out to maybe recognize what's happening and to hopefully provide solutions for them, and going back to nature. And hopefully this situation around the world will eventually resolve itself. And we don't need to get into the politics of all that. That could be a whole other show. And we want this show to stay here on YouTube without having to be censored. So I'm seeing a lot of new people in the chat. They're like, whoa, what's this person's backstory? She's amazing. So let's just step back here. Rhyanna and I did, I don't know, 30 or some, maybe 50 shows already. But a lot of them have disappeared. So that's probably why some of the people are like, who is this person? So let's maybe backtrack a little bit, Rhyanna, and talk about your book and what brought you to write this book. Because in this book, you talk a lot about healing. You talk about depression, rape, losing a baby. Like, get into why you wrote this book and how absolutely transformative it was for you, but also your audience here in your community.
Yeah, so, you know, a kind of a cascading effects to writing the book. I mean, I first came onto social media personally. I was struggling with pre and postnatal depression from losing a child. And then I was told I couldn't have a child. And then suddenly I was having a child and scared that I was going to lose that child again.
Right.
And then coming into the world of motherhood with a lot of disbalance in my hormones and isolation, being in a German-speaking country, and really I couldn't tell you much about anything, even the weight that I gained. If anybody asked me those things, I just know I don't know. It was a very difficult experience. And then I, ventured into places such as Saudi Arabia to live, to try and make our family survive with doing different contracts, having different experiences. But when you're not in a balanced place and you go into an isolated community, because Saudi is very different, it has beautiful people, but mentally it was very unhealthy that I didn't have family around, which led to the attempt on my life and the rebuilding. So that's kind of the backstory of a little bit of that. And then, so I was on social media, and I guess you could probably call me naive in this world, in the sense that I was a swimmer, so I didn't think anything of it to share my body on social media with a swimsuit, because I walked around with swimsuits my whole life, and I never had sexualization before, because we were all very normal in that process. And my dad was someone who would walk in the shower in and out naked, and I would, we wouldn't think twice of it. We'd go to the beach, we'd get changed. The body was a tool for life. So I started sharing that because I was trying to relearn about my body after the stigmas and untruths, and also the lies that I was telling myself through. When you have traumas, you feel dirty, you feel unloved, you feel a problem. When you're abused, you feel like you are that abuse and you deserve that abuse. And so I was trying to share a human as a fractured human, sharing the facets of her rather than here's one side of me. And in that turn, gave a lot of positivity to my health development, but a lot of misunderstanding in social media, including the yoga community, thinking that I was misappropriating, or they were misappropriating me to place me on a more sexual side of life, which I'm in a family, so it's definitely something that I've never kind of ventured into, but that's what social media does. And so
Right.
through the following that came, and me sharing myself as I was, I got contacted by a publisher, and they wanted to write the book. Then they saw that there was other sides to me, and they had to check into my background. And I said, this is why I want to write the book. We are not what people say we are. We are not people's judgments. We are not perceptions and all of those things. We are just a human sharing. So it became about me telling that and saying, well, hey, you might want to just take a step back and start thinking about, if you're on social media, do you know what coffee or tea they drink in the morning? Do you know if they have a family? Do you know where they work? Do you know their brothers and sisters? If you don't know any of that, how could we ever judge another person?
Right.
How could we ever shame another person? There's so many statues in Europe that are naked, and we walk past it every day, and no kid is damaged. So it begs me to think about the stories we create that damage the children. If we're saying that a bikini on YouTube is adult content, but I'm going in a bikini to the beach with my daughter, do I need an 18 plus sign on me for every human? These are the questions that I'm asking social media and people to think about. Let's start thinking a little bit more. Let's start realizing, and this is where we were talking about how children are damaged. Children are going to be online and think that this is inappropriate wear, but then they come to the beach and it's appropriate wear. How can we segment the two? How can we have athletes as volleyball and gymnasts in one pieces and be loved, but then there's a yoga person and they have to be R-rated? It doesn't make a healthy thought pattern. So that's when I shared my book and the backstory, and all of that came together.
Okay, I love it. And wow. I'm just recalling all of these conversations you and I had, and still today I saw some comments. I was like, "Oh, why do you have soft porn on your channel, JC?" I'm like, "Soft porn? I mean, Rhyanna is the exact opposite frequency of porn, and if you've watched any of our shows, you'd understand why. We're trying to reprogram or to delete all of these old programmings that give us these malformations of our thoughts of who we are, what our bodies are, our image, and the frequency that we transmit in different poses. And in yoga, just like in the Egyptians' postures of power, you're basically moving your body antenna into different frequencies. And you have been adept at learning how to do this and sharing this with the audience. And this is part of what was discussed in our book review, and also the healing components of it. So I recommend the audience maybe stick with that there, and think about that when they perceive some of the imagery in some of your work, and realize that it's coming from a place of healing. It's a very, very different frequency. And I know for a fact that the Patreon series that you and I were running at the time, The Healing Within, we had so many great people click for the first time, and some of them said, oh my God, I've been doing therapy for 20 years, but it wasn't until I saw Rhyanna talk about these specific frequencies, how it affected her, and how I can embody those frequencies, that it finally clicked that I had the power, that I could heal within. So we had so many of those amazing comments. So anyways, I recommend the audience maybe check that out before passing judgment on the content here. Absolutely amazing. One of the things in your book, and I think it's important now, this was on page 84 if people have it with them, but step through fear into freedom. And this is something that you've been doing over and over again, whether that was with your social media following, with the book, with the work that you're doing now online, helping people also. Talk about that, what it meant for you to maybe deal with some of these past traumas, the fear of stepping out of them, and changing the definition of who you were, and understanding that you were not your past traumas, that you were somebody completely different, and you could recreate that person into a much healthier person. But for that, you needed to step through that fear. Talk about that a little bit for the audience.
Yeah, so many things coming to mind, and I'm just trying to think how to express this. I guess stepping through the fear is, I always like to think about it, and I know that this is kind of grown since I've written the book, but I like to think about it like the lies that we tell ourselves. And I say that in a very compassionate way. If you are a person that's been a victim of verbal or physical abuse, you will probably say a lie like, I'm not worthy, or you will probably say some of the sentence structure that the person who's abusing you, I am that person, right?
Right.
Whatever that word may be. But that's not the truth. That's the lies that have come to tell yourself to justify that you are in this situation, to manage the situation, whatever it is, because maybe you're not able to get out, maybe you're not ready to get out, maybe there's more to the processing. There's so many reasons why we are stuck in the spirals that we are. But I think, one of the things that I had to realize was I was not my depression. I have had depression tendencies and emotions and anxiety depressions and all those things encompassing, but I am not anxiety and I'm not depression. I have that in me, but I am able to manage it when I am aware of it. But when I was telling myself that I am that, there's nothing else I can be. So that was a lie I was telling myself, for example. But when we move in patterns, whether we move to a healthy pattern or a non-healthy pattern, if the non-healthy pattern of saying that I am depression is comfortable, then we're more likely to stay in the bracket of pain, because it's very uncomfortable moving to new possibilities.
Yeah.
And it's why a lot of people fall back on their habits, because humans are wired to be comfortable whether it's servicing us or not. So not only do you have the challenge of the lies that you tell yourself to rewire those conversations you're having, but you also have the challenge of the kickback of the wall, where you have that limit that says, oh, it's much easier to go back to where I was because I know everything that's happening. And so that's probably one of the things that you're jumping through when you're jumping through. It's fearful. Even if you're getting new exercise and you want to achieve your goal, it's fearful to know whether you're going to accomplish it or not, isn't it? It's quite scary.
Right.
But it's much easier to sit on the couch and eat and know you're not going anywhere and you know what the result is, for an example.
Right.
And it sounds illogical, but humans are wired for comfort, and that's why we get stuck a lot in the possibilities of non-growth and growth or trauma, because we say things that don't service our better tomorrows, and then we don't have the belief, and then we don't have the courage to believe in what is ahead of us.
Ryan. As you're talking, I was like, I'm going to ask you 30 more questions, but I know we're running short on time here today. So, folks, go check out Brave, Beautiful, and Bearing It All, and you'll see in there just how much Rhyanna shares and how deep some of her thoughts are, and how this book is really written step by step by step. It's all baby steps, and that's what I love about it. It was really a step-by-step guide of how Rhyanna dealt with some of those past traumas and became the person she is today, and she's sharing that with you guys. It's such a beautiful story, so go check it out. The links are in the description box below. And Rhyanna, I guess what we can say here too is, for the audience members here who are still looking for this series, The Sacred Sex, The Healer Within, here on YouTube, on my pay-per-view, when do you think we can bring this together? And why were you and I thinking, okay, let's push this back to spring? What was the impetus here, or the universal guidance you were getting to push this series back a little bit more here?
I think at the moment we are transitioning, particularly in the winter area of the world, and there is a lot of unknown with this. And I think that with that being said, it's not really an open possibility for us to take on new things right now. It's just too many things. You know, you've also got the end of year festivities that we're trying to bring into the world of joy, if we can have them, and then to place something else kind of in a closed, potentially open frequency doesn't really allow us for possibilities. So I thought that it would be more appropriate as we're moving into the warmer months, as we've gone through all of this transitional period into our third, the winter of unknownness, that perhaps we, because we know now when the summers come and the warmer weathers come, we have more freedom. And when we have more freedom, we have more possibility to accept new information. And when we have that, we have more possibility for change. So that was kind of my process to thinking that it would be lovely to have time when we're not stressed and we don't have too many things on our plate. We have more time to open up and allow things to come into us, but not through push and shove as well.
You said that ever so diplomatically. And of course, yes, there's a lot going on in the world right now. And Rhyanna and I were just looking at the timing and the frequency going on now. Some of the maybe difficult days and months ahead of us, and we wanted to make sure that when we do produce this episode, humanity is in the right place to hear it, because again, she and I have had issues in the past sharing this information with the world, and we just want to do it right. So a big thank you to everyone who did purchase that first episode on pre-order. If you want to have a refund, it's absolutely okay. Send me an email, I'll refund you if you don't want to wait that period of time. If you want to wait, absolutely, once we put the video up there, you will still have access to that. Shioban is saying, hey, I couldn't find that pay-per-view on your insider access list. It's because we haven't recorded it yet, so you can't see it there, but it is. It will become available, of course, to the insiders as soon as recorded. So that's to answer Siobhan. And for you guys who are looking for the actual pay-per-view episode, here's a link now in the live chat. Okay, so I think that handles that. Now, let's talk about the people who want to reach out to you and perhaps get started on this road to not only self-healing, but also maybe empowering themselves with their body, with their transformation, with their food, with their exercise. What do you have for them here as a starter package on RhyannaWatson.com?
So if you went to the right side where the lines are, I go through offerings, and then we can, best thing is to do a consultation. And this way you can speak with me and tell me what you're looking for, and we can have an understanding, because one of the things that for me is health is our real wealth. And I want to make sure that I am the right alignment for you. One of the things that a lot of people do is push a 30-day program, but health is lifelong. And so the most important thing is to know that I can service you, to then in turn, long-term, you service yourself. I view health as a health and wellbeing consultant, that I would help you and one day you take it away, and the ripple effect, you know, you'd be doing my teaching somewhere else, whether it's within family or you have a career in it. I really believe in the ripple effect rather than selling a 30-day program. So I think that's the best way, or my book would be a lovely way for you to get to know me if you wanted to share my journey a bit to see if that was something that resonated with you, the words, the way I speak. I'm not your traditional sense of, 30 days, here you go again. So I really am someone that's very intuitive in the process, because I believe that health is an intuitive process. I don't believe that anything in life is not intuitive. I think feelings, which is where sensuality, listening, smelling, seeing, touching is a very important part of the process, to feeling joy and pleasure and having success and overcoming. If you're having a bad day and you put the right music on, that bad day turns into awesomeness all through your senses. So, very much encompassing the experience.
You just mentioned sensuality there, and I have to bring it up because in this book, you and I had talked about the differences between sensuality and sexuality. And for a lot of people, that's all in the same pot. And you did such a great job explaining how sensuality, those senses, tuning into those senses, really bring you into the body. And then from there, your healing process can go a lot faster. So let me bring this back up here. I thought this was interesting because for this type of work, you typically don't see this phrase here, without judgment or agenda. And you, of course, have that because you understand here that for some people, getting into this healing aspect can be terrifying, can be attached to some old shame frequencies, regret frequencies. And you understand that. Of course, this is what we talked about in your book review series. But explain to the audience here what you mean by that here in this coaching session.
I think as we move through life, we all have a natural inclination to things. And those inclinations during our lives, some will be celebrated and some won't be. But when we're going through the health process of life, we have to know all of those inclinations to be able to nourish it and make the ones that maybe are a little bit extreme, a little bit more mindful to the approach where they can be situated and how they can be utilized in a good way to, the same as sexuality. It's a beautiful thing. It makes children and it can have a wonderful connection to your partner, but you need to be able to do it healthily. So it's the same with the health process. Sometimes, we eat too much of something, we have a craving for it, or multiple other things that can come into it. And so sharing yourself unapologetically is going to make the process just that much easier for us to figure the ability out to find how you want to intuitively work on those things, rather than, okay, here's the splits, we all just sit in the splits and we get that, full splits going in 2 minutes. That's helpful for nobody when we go through the health process, except for maybe someone who's born that way.
Right.
But the mental capacity is not helped. So at the end of the day, you still need that, like, okay, sorry, I really love this and I know that it's not helping me and I'm really embarrassed to tell you, and I'm going to say, hey, you're human.
Right.
I'm human too, I like slightly green apricots and slightly green bananas, and everybody thinks that's weird. So, that's just what we are, and let's be honest about it. And then from honesty and the ability to have acceptance in it, you have growth with compassion and empathy, not only from others, but most importantly from yourself, the upward spiral of kindness.
Okay, so guys, just rewind 2 minutes and listen to that again. You'll understand why this is on the screen right now and why I'm so excited to bring back Rhyanna on the show for you guys. The way she expresses that is that the compassion there is absolutely amazing. So a big thank you to you, Rhyanna. Somebody's in the chat saying, hey, where can we find all those old videos? Yeah, they're gone, guys. And this was partly my fault too. When I started my first YouTube channel, I wasn't backing up properly everything. I had some backups and I had some issues with one hard drive. And as I was having issues with the hard drive, YouTube deleted me and I couldn't access all of that. So yes, there's a lot of episodes that were lost through all of this, never to be seen again. And so this is why we wanted to recreate them here on our pay-per-view, to not have to deal with any of those censorship issues. So more to come from the amazing Rhyanna. In the meantime, if you want to book a session with her here, click on this ready to sign up, and this will bring you, is this a booking form, Rhyanna? How does this work out? Just go to your email. Okay, very good.
Yes.
Okay, and then from there you respond and you choose a date and get together for, okay, that makes sense to me. Okay, so folks, that's RhyannaWatson.com. Also check her out here on Amazon. You can find her book, Brave, Beautiful, and Bearing It All. And finally, you can follow her on a daily basis here. She puts out a lot of content at Open Hearts Can Unite here on YouTube. And all of these links are in the description box below, folks. So this was an episode of the Milky Woo. Yeah, and somebody asked earlier, why did you choose that title? We'll get to that in another show, guys. We're just happy, Rhyanna and I, to reconnect. It's been such a long time. And so, Rhyanna, a big thank you for your time here this morning. You're absolutely amazing, and you're welcome anytime. And I look forward to maybe doing a part 2 of this, starting this spring, so that we can reconnect with our audience with the Sacred Sex series on our pay-per-view. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining here today. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe on my third backup channel before this one goes away too. Hopefully not. Anyways, we'll see you soon. I love you, Rhyanna. Have a great day. Take care.
You too. Bye. Bye.